So much for joining us today. It's a very exciting day because we get to talk about biodiversity and nature and incredibly important things, and we're celebrating this very much in the UK Pavilion today, so welcome. Today we're going to be talking about growing the global forest carbon market and how LEAF is helping to create a self-sustaining forest carbon market. My name is Kate Hughes. I'm Director for International Climate Finance and Strategy in the UK government in our Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Today I'm wearing my LEAF trousers, especially for this event and to celebrate LEAF and how fantastic it is. So I'm really pleased to be here because at COP26, the LEAF coalition announced that it met its initial goal of mobilising $1 billion for countries and states committed to increasing ambition to protect tropical and subtropical forests and to reduce deforestation. And we all know how important that challenge is and how important that is not just to keeping 1.5 alive, but to all our wider goals of biodiversity and nature. And as you might have heard already, the LEAF Coalition has increased the amount of money mobilised from that $1 billion last year to $1.5 billion now, which is a fantastic achievement, I'm sure you'll agree, and shows just how exciting and important this initiative is. So today I'm delighted to be joined by a panel up here who are going to talk a little bit more about what LEAF means to us. And we're going to hear a little bit from each of them, and then at the end we're also going to hear from Emergent, who run LEAF as well, to tell you a little bit more detail about how LEAF works, and hopefully there'll be some time for questions then as well. So first of all, I'm going to turn to my colleague here, Victor Chiba, who is Assistant Director of Forests in the Zambian government. And I should probably just pass on apologies because we were hoping that the Zambian minister would join us, though we're delighted that Victor is here. But the minister is chair of the LDC group, and you can imagine quite how busy things get at this stage in COP. So he is there doing essential work in the negotiations as well. But as I said, it's fantastic that we have got Victor here. We also have David Rademacher from E.ON, who is a contributor to LEAF, and Lord Zach Goldsmith, who is the Minister of State for Asia, Energy, Climate and Environment for the UK government as well. So let me come to you first, Victor, because you're soon going to be signing a letter of intent with the LEAF coalition, which I think is a huge step for LEAF and for Zambia towards receiving that essential results-based finance as well. So we'd love to hear from you about what Zambia is doing to protect your forests and what the private finance means in that endeavour as well. And what can we do to help you towards that? Victor.
Thank you very much. I wish to tender apologies for the minister who could not be with us, as we have said. From Zambia, we manage quite some number of forest reserves and also biodiversity-related issues. So what you've been doing as a country in order to manage the forest estates, there have been a number of reforms in the sector, such as reviewing the policies and also aspects of the legislation. Now, as we do that, resource mobilization becomes quite a key issue. And as we look for resources for making sure that we manage the forest resources, we try to prioritize the issue of community-related issues and safeguards. So after analyzing a number of players who were there, we realized that there was a trees methodology that focuses on some of these issues, which comes from the LEAF coalition team. So we went into a number of discussions and seeing what would work in the country. So what we have done now, we have a draft letter of intent, which we are trying to analyze with a view that we can go into financing, and especially that it seems to be a good deal for the country, but of course our lawyers and everyone else who advise so that the policy decisions are made in order for us to protect the resources better. We would want to grow into ensuring that most of the community groups are benefiting from this arrangement within the country's scope. And as the discussions take into account, our expectations, of course, under the LEAF coalition is to ensure that we have a good pricing for the community, the sale of the carbon credits, and also related interventions. We want to see as much innovation as possible, and that's why we have been discussing quite a number of things with the possible countries that are going to sponsor us.
Well, thank you for that, and I think it's so important to hear you talking about the communities as well and how they're involved and making sure that finance is getting through to those communities. And actually your minister was here yesterday on Energy Day as well, saying how Zambia is ready. It really wants to work with the world to understand, you know, how we can work together in partnership and mobilise this essential finance. So thank you very much for that. David, maybe I'll come to you next, because you've joined LEAF, you know, as a private sector organisation. You know, maybe you could say a little bit about your reasons for joining this. Why?
Thanks, Kate. E.ON is a European utility, 50 million customers in Europe, and fully focused on sustainability and the decarbonization of the energy sector. So for us, it's most consequently the right thing to do to also invest in halting deforestation, because we're all aware there is no 1.5-degree pathway without halting deforestation. Now, the LEAF Coalition for us is one of these fantastic examples where donor governments, special thanks to the UK government and Lord Goldsmith, have set something up that creates trust. Trust in a form where donor governments, the UK, the US, Norway, and now also Korea, give a construct where corporates can invest in sustainability, a meaningful purpose. And we are investing in a way that we generate also value for our customers, because our customers, for unavoidable emissions, demand carbon credits. And it's important to note that we're not using these carbon credits through halting deforestation for greenwashing or reducing reduction. For us, our reduction pathway is clear. It's 1.5 degree aligned, it's SBTi approved, and anything we do in LEAF is on top, it's additional. And we really like the spirit. We see that 1.5 billion US dollars, that's 5 times the size of the voluntary carbon market in the year 2020. So it's impact, and that's the spirit we need in the decade of action.
That's great, thank you. And I mean, that was one of the key things I know as the government, when we looked at setting up LEAF, that key principle of building that trust and integrity behind this, so that actually it is making a proper difference and having the impact that we want. And maybe I can turn to you, Minister, to kind of also just sort of set out, you know, we've already heard about, you know, communities, about private sector, but also the importance of public sector coming in. You know, what does this mean to you? Why is LEAF important to the UK government and for the impact that it has towards stopping deforestation?
Thank you so much. Happy Nature Day, everyone. This is, or Biodiversity Day. Every day needs to be Nature Day, but I'm very pleased that there is a focus here at COP27. And I think, just stepping back a second, I think the most important contribution we made as presidents of COP last year was to bring nature into the very heart of climate politics. And we did, you know, the main day was all geared around extracting promises from forest nations. We've got 145 countries representing 90% of the world's forests to commit to ending deforestation this decade. But also the private sector. We got financial institutions worth around $9 trillion committing to align their portfolios with that same goal. We got the 13 biggest agricultural commodity traders to commit to aligning their buying with that same goal. And that matters because most deforestation, about 80% of it, is caused by agricultural commodities. And we got the multilateral development banks as well to make the same commitment, and we secured $20 billion of direct finance from governments but also philanthropists to help those countries, those forest countries, do what they committed to doing. So it's a pretty powerful package of commitments. Obviously they're promises, and promises need to be delivered, but if they are, then I think this decade does become the decade where we turn the tide on deforestation. And as my friend here from E.ON said, you cannot, there is no pathway to net zero. There's no tackling climate change without nature. I mean, anyone who produces a net zero plan, whether it's a company or a country, if it doesn't include nature, then it's worth nothing. I mean, it really isn't. We can have all the solar panels you want, all the energy efficiency drive. Of course, we need all that stuff. and we need to radically accelerate. But if we ignore nature, all those efforts are going to be for nothing. We know that about a third of emissions come from deforestation and land degradation. We know the flip side is that nature provides anything up to half the solution, but it's so much more than that. And we had a session here in this room a couple of days ago with the Congo Basin countries, and we were told that if you know, that the Congo Basin provides anything up to 2/3 of the rainfall across the continent of Africa, the entire continent. So if you lose the Congo, which is happening at 500,000 hectares a year, you lose the rainfall, then you lose the farming, the agriculture, and then you have a humanitarian crisis just on a scale that we've never had to deal with before as a species. So this stuff really, really is central, and it matters so much. And the beauty of LEAF, which was part of that package that I just described about mobilizing the private sector, is that, you know, we know there's not enough public money to solve this problem. There's more that can be found, undoubtedly. We're trying to get countries to step up as we approach Montreal, but we need the private sector. And there's a lot of mistrust. You mentioned that term greenwash, which is something we're all familiar with. There is an awful lot of greenwashing around. And the beauty of LEAF is that it is genuinely high integrity, which means it's not just about good quality projects that the money is going into. It's about good quality corporations, businesses investing the money. They have to show that this is additional. This is not replacing the kind of activity we need companies to do to reduce their emissions. It is trusted. It is high integrity. We could have grown it even faster. 1.5 billion is amazing. Thank you to VW for joining very recently. But we had to also ensure that as it grows with high integrity. So I think it's a fantastic story. I'd like it to grow much, much more, but without losing sight of the high integrity component. We know these markets are going to grow. We need to grow them properly, and the opportunities are growing with them. Look at Brazil. What's happened there in the last couple of weeks is just tectonic. I mean, I don't think I've ever cared more about an election, even in my own country in the UK, than I did the election in Brazil, because we've gone from a government that was actively hostile, not just to activists, but to the environment itself, actively hostile to the people who depend upon and look after the environment, indigenous people, to a government which is brimming with ambition. And the door is open for big cooperation between governments, but also the private sector. So thank you for your high integrity intervention. Thank you for what you're doing, and good luck with the process, with the application. Congratulations to Ecuador and other countries as well that have nearly got over the line. Some have already got over the line. And thank you to South Korea for being one of our latest, I think the latest country to join as a government donor. This is a good news story, and I think we need a few of them.
Absolutely. Let's clap our good news story. Well, thank you so much, Minister, for that. And I think it is worth remembering that, yeah, the COP last year, you know, nature was in the cover decision for the first time ever, and that was a huge step forward. And as you said, actually all the way through to this year, and I'm sure many of you have been over to the pavilions, yeah, you know, a bit of a walk away, the Amazon pavilions and the various Brazilian pavilions, and there is a real energy there at the moment. And obviously it's a huge day with Lula here too. So it's great that there's so many of you have made it here now as well to talk about LEAF, and there are various other events happening on LEAF here as well. So I think it's a great rallying cry as well for those of you here, those of you maybe watching, and for us to sort of go out and make sure that others are hearing about the huge work that's happening here, because this COP is about implementation, and LEAF is about implementation and bringing together countries, communities, private sector, government, MDBs, everyone working together to actually ensure that finance is flowing, because we know that's absolutely critical, and we are making a real difference on the ground and valuing those forests in exactly the way that we need to be. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to this panel now as well, and I know, Minister, you need to run off probably pretty soon as well. And what we're going to do next is turn and hear a little bit as well from Rocchio from Emergent. She is the Managing Director of Supply there. So she's going to tell us and give a little presentation about some of the details of what Emergent and the LEAF project are doing on the ground as well. So thank you to my panel. You're welcome to stay if you want, but thank you very much. I know you have to go. You're welcome. Let's sit here as well if you want. Rocchio, please come up. I know you've got a few slides. You might want to stand over here. You might want to sit down. Make yourself comfortable. There's seats here if you want.
Well, yes? Okay. Maybe okay, so I'm going to speak about LEAF, but before I do that, I would like to give a bit of a background. So my first COP was in 2012 in Durban. I remember that there were people at the entrance of the conference screaming, yelling, ambition, do more, do more, do more. Now, 10 years after that, we are in the COP that we call the COP of implementation, and I am very happy to present something that really epitomizes the ambition of all these countries. I'm very happy to be representing the LEAF Coalition as part of Emergent, that is the coordinator of this initiative. I remember back then, and even still now, a lot of talking focused on how the public sector should join the private sector. Well, this is exactly what the LEAF Coalition is doing. So we have now 4 governments, 4 donor governments, the UK, thank you very much for your contribution and your leadership in this initiative, US, Norway, and now South Korea, that has just been announced in this COP. We also have 26 companies. If you think of big international companies, we have many of them. We have of course, E.ON, thank you very much for your leadership also. Yeah, so you see the logos there. We have just announced here in this COP Volkswagen and H&M. So we have 26 corporates plus 4 donor countries. Now, if you ask me why is LEAF different to anything that is out there working in the RED Plus or in the voluntary carbon market, I will tell you to keep in mind these 5 things. One, it is a public-private coalition. So we have the aggregation of the credits from the donors as well as from these private companies. We believe that if we want to stay under 1.5 degrees, if we want to really contribute to the Paris Agreement goals, we really need to work with large scale, with very high volumes in terms of carbon credits from the supply side, but also from the demand side. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that we work with high integrity. What is high integrity? We work with a standard that is called R-trees, that basically is known for its capacity to well, to verify that the emissions have been generated without any double counting, without leakages, etc. Number 3, it is that we work with a very large scale. We aggregate a lot of volume. If you want to have an idea of how much, what is the scale that we work with, well, we have been able to mobilize $1.5 billion, and that is 4 times the size of the voluntary carbon market in 2021. So that is quite outstanding what I have been able to achieve. And then number 3, it is the speed. So we have been very fast. The coalition was launched last year in April, and in only, well, in less than 2 years, we have been able to mobilize $1.5 billion, and we are close to signing ERPAs with 4 governments. So that is quite an undertaking. And then the 5th is that we do not only care about the climate, but we also care about the social aspect of RED Plus. We have strict social safeguards, and we have as requirements for the governments, that forest governments, to engage and consult and do joint work with the indigenous people and local communities on the ground. So as you can see on the map, we have the following jurisdictions. We have in Mexico, Jalisco, Quintana Roo. We have Guyana and Ecuador and the 8 Brazilian states in the Amazon basin. In a few minutes, we will be announcing 4 letters of intent with 4 Brazilian states: Pará, Amapá, Mato Grosso, Maranhão. We have signed in this COP pre-ERPA memorandum of agreements with Ecuador and Costa Rica. In Africa, we work with, of course, Zambia. We hope to sign an LOI, a letter of intent, with Zambia as the first step in the coming months. We also work with Ghana, that we are close to signing an ERPA with. We work with Kenya, Uganda, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, and DRC. And then in Asia, we work with the government of Nepal, who is here. Thank you very much for your leadership and your interest and efforts to bring the first pre-ERPA MOA that we have signed here in this COP. And we also have made progress with the government of Vietnam. We have signed an LOI with them, and we will sign an ERPA with them next year. So that is, in a nutshell, what the LEAF Coalition is. If you are here representing a forest country and you are interested in selling your jurisdictional REDD+ credits, please come see me. If you are representing a corporation and are excited and enthused about this, please also come see me. We are growing every month. This is a very dynamic space, which is also very exciting. So I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak about LEAF, and I think that we are going to take some questions.
Thank you so much, Rocio, for that introduction. And I have to say, I mean, kind of having worked in this area for a while, and we had an event in the margins of the New York Climate Week on this, and it was a room full of corporates and people active in the kind of business and so on. And I don't think I'd ever expected to see a room of corporate leaders talking about voluntary carbon markets and deforestation, but we all know how quickly this changes and how important this is. And the one question they kept on coming back to is this point of integrity and making sure that it worked and it was really having impact on the ground. And I think that's what's so exciting, that the point of LEAF is that it's so important to do and to address deforestation, but it's even more important to do it properly and to address those social impacts that you mentioned as well. So we do have an opportunity if people have got any questions on how it works for Rocio as well, anything that you want to ask, we're open to all of that. We have a roving mic here just coming. Let's take a couple of questions. So we've got two in the front row here, so one here and one here. And if you say who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, Faisal Parish from Global Environment Center in Malaysia. Just like to hear a little bit about the progress in rolling it out, the LEAF program in Asia. We're working with the ASEAN Secretariat and the 10 member nations of ASEAN to look at the issue of increasing the climate-related funding flow to address the degradation of forest and peatlands within the region. So maybe you can just clarify how LEAF might be a tool that could support that work. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, Olivier Lejeune from Quantum Commodity Intelligence. Just wanted to know, so we're a specialist media, just wanted to know when R-Trace credits, when you expect them to be issued, and if you could repeat the 4 states from Brazil, Amapá, Pará, Mato Grosso. I didn't catch the last one. Thank you.
Great, thank you. 2 great questions there. Over to you.
So, yeah, we have Amapá, Pará, Mato Grosso, Maranhão, and then in terms of the R-Trace credits, when they will be issued, we are starting. We will be starting to see credits being issued next year, early next year. So first half of 2023. That is when we are expecting for the issuance and the first transactions. And in terms of the representative of from Malaysia, yes, we still do not work with Malaysia. We would be delighted to have a conversation. This is something that Asia is certainly a very dynamic region that we are very interested in. So we can speak afterwards. Yes. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
That's great, and obviously, you know, it's exciting that we see that all areas are represented on this map, but yeah, we need to expand it, and it was great to, yeah, I think they might have gone, but we had colleagues from Nepal here as well. Now we've got some questions coming through, so we're going to need to move the microphone. I saw the gentleman at the back here first, and then over here, and I saw one other hand. Where did it go? We've got a question at the back.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Sodam Topge, and I am from Bhutan, very close to Nepal. I would like to inquire for just in case, if Bhutan would like to join the coalition, so I would like to inquire, like, is there like any support, both financially and technically, for to complete the whole process, so that for us to be ready to join the coalition? Thank you.
Great. So it was a question about Bhutan joining and the support that might be available. Thank you. And there was a question here in the middle while you're near, and then we'll come over to the front.
Hello, my name is Elliot. I'm the camera operator here, but I have a question. I hope you could answer this for me. So the amount of carbon that the average person produces, how many trees do you know we would have to plant to counteract the amount of carbon that they would produce?
Oh, a tough one there. I might not come to you again. Though it's your first question, so since I've been here in the pavilion, so you're allowed. Let's come to, sorry, I can see loads and loads of questions. Let's come quickly to Abid in the front as well, and then we'll come and try and do another swoop as well.
Thanks very much for the details on the Leaf Coalition. So Abid Kamali with Bank of America. I was curious on a few different issues. The first is if you can say a little bit about the technical standard, not in gross detail, but maybe just perhaps distinguishing it from, for example, the existing Vera standard, and also the sovereign carbon topic, which has been raised elsewhere over here. Then the second point is when a corporate commits, are they committing to a volume or a price or both? And then the third one is about distribution of funds. So what sorts of measures are you taking to ensure the funds are also addressing social issues? Thanks.
Great. So let's pause there, and we'll come and let you answer those three questions.
So the question from the gentleman in the back. Yeah. So in terms of technical assistance and support, we do not provide ourselves this technical assistance, but we work with partners who might be able to provide capacity building and technical assistance. I encourage you to stay in the next session that is starting at 3:45. It is run by our colleagues from UN Red, and they are going to provide information as of what type of assistance they provide to jurisdictions who might want to participate in the LEAF coalition. So in terms of your question, I'm sorry, I don't have that number from the top of my head, but yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. We would need to find out. And in terms of the question from the gentleman from Bank of America, right? So I know that you have asked a few questions. One of them is the price. The price that we pay is a minimum guaranteed price of $10 per ton. That is a price that we have for the crediting years 2022 to 2026. Now, as I said, there's donors, sovereign donors, UK, US, Norway, and now Korea, that will commit some funds to make the result-based payments. That is at a minimum guaranteed price of $10 per ton, and there is a possibility of getting a higher price when we are closer to issuance, because we might resell those credits to corporates. So let's say that the minimum guaranteed price is $10 per ton. Also, sorry, the other question that the gentleman raised on
The standard.
yeah, so the R3 standard, I cannot really compare it with Vera, but what I can tell you is that it is a standard that has been created a couple years ago. It is quite recent. Its final draft was launched last year. It is considered to be one of the standards with the highest integrity. It's a standard that is used, for example, by Corsia. It protects against leakage. It protects against double accounting. It has very strong safeguards that are based on the Cancun safeguards. So it is very similar to the FCPF system. That's why we work with many countries that have gone through the FCPF from the World Bank process. And but we could say that the R3 standard is a standard that has very high integrity, maybe higher than others. So
Thank you. Good question. And maybe we'll see Bank of America coming along soon as well. And certainly, yeah, the art tree standard was something which attracted us to this as well because of the high integrity at the heart of it and the points just made in terms of making sure those sort of social aspects and double counting were addressed right at the outset too. And very much we also, as part of our contribution towards this endeavour, provide technical assistance as well to make sure that countries are supported in terms of joining this endeavour, because we know it can be complex and difficult. So that's very much part of the UK and Norway offer towards LEAF as well. So I think we might have a couple of minutes. As Rocchio said as well, the next session as well is talking about UN, RED Plus and LEAF in that context too. So if you are interested, hang around. Okay, we're going to do a really quick round. There's a gentleman in the far corner and a lady on the front row and a gentleman on the front row. Okay, I'm going to end it there. Please say who you are, where you're from, and if you could make your question nice and short, that would be great.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Jigme Tenzin. I work with Fauna and Flora International. So my question is just very short and forward, because since a lot of corporate and government are employed and they're going to buy carbon credits from the countries, so how do we work on the corresponding adjustment? Is it adjusted at the government level, or it is bought by the corporate, or the governments or the selling countries can adjust in their NDCs? Yeah, thank you.
Great. So a question about corresponding adjustments. Why don't we go to this gentleman in the front row while you're coming past, Almaz? Just hold it close and talk.
1, 2. Oh, hi. I'm Alec. Hi, I'm Alec from Mongabay, which is a site that covers a lot of forestry, rainforest issues. Obviously, I've just been. I know the Leaf Coalition has pledged 1.5 billion. I'm also interested, though, in the Forest and Climate Leaders Partnership. When will there be a document issued on that and its goals and its schedule? When will major rainforest nations actually join that? I know Indonesia was considering but hasn't yet. DRC, Brazil, not to be seen. And lastly, is tree planting really a goal of that project, considering that Justin Trudeau, when that was announced, was talking about Canada's 2 billion tree plan rather than conserving primary forest? Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Emily Mathias. I'm here from the New Zealand delegation, and my question was covered by another person in the back, but I was wondering about, there's been a bit of talk about kind of the sitting in the results-based finance space and the voluntary carbon market, but I'm wondering what the relationship between the two is, and the question around corresponding adjustments and whether this is contemplating Article 6 cooperation. Thank you.
Great. Rocchio, do you want to take the first couple? No, 1 and 3.
That's a very relevant question, as we know that Article 6 is being negotiated. So we have 4 transaction pathways that forest countries can decide which pathway they want to work with. The first 2 are result-based payments. So that means that there is no transfer of title, and basically there's no corresponding adjustment that is necessary. Then there's 2 more that where there's corporates that buy, so that engage into a transaction. Only one of them requires the corresponding adjustment for the forest country's NDC. And again, it is the forest country's choice to decide which pathway they want to select. There's some companies that might want, some companies of the LEAF Coalition that might want to have credits from pathway 4, so with a corresponding adjustment if they want to transact in the regulated market, such as Corsia. But if they just want to make a result-based payment, then that could happen through pathways 1 or 2. And the other question, sorry, could you help me with his question?
So I think probably that second question was more for me about the Forest Climate Leaders Partnership. And it's a good question because we're very proud of this. And it was launched in its sort of first at the Leaders session last week, and we had the first ministerial meeting on Saturday. I'm slightly losing track of days, but it was definitely Saturday, and the US and Ghana are the co-chairs of this initiative now as well. I think we've got really exciting representation. You know, there are clear reasons why Brazil isn't quite at the table yet, but there were a whole range of different countries across all of those 3 different continents as well, in terms of forest nations as well as support countries too. And you know, the US and Ghana co-chairing, I think, is a really exciting development. We had Republic of Congo around the table, and Costa Rica and Kenya, and a whole load of countries I now can't remember. I'm trying to go around the table in my head. If there isn't up already on the internet, there will certainly be some updates on the internet very soon as a kind of a readout on where we are on that partnership and what it will do next. And the main idea was actually creating a real political spotlight on countries to focus on this, because this is an area that hasn't had enough political focus over the last few years that it deserves, and we want to create this sort of annual moment where we can check in, look each other in the eye, and see that we are making the progress that needs to happen. And like all of these, actually, what are we about? We're about reducing deforestation, about restoring forests, and I think sort of going in that order rather than just sort of planting trees is important, but protecting, restoring, avoiding deforestation is very much a priority as well. So DRC were in the room. I'm trying to remember. I can follow up with you separately as well, but this is about our coalition, but also, as the Minister said last year, signing up to the Glasgow Leaders Declaration were 145 world leaders as well. So that was a huge moment as well for many countries, showing that commitment at leader level to forests. And that's why we're excited about LEAF too, because it was part of those leader level declarations about showing how the money is flowing and how we're actually implementing this on the ground. And I'm going to draw this event to a close now. I know there's lots of interest in the room. You all now know who Rocchio is as well, so I'm sure they can come and find you too if you need to find out more. And it's great to hear so much interest in the room. As we said, there's another event in here next on sort of UN Red Plus, and also talking about LEAF, and there is more activity happening over in the, I need to get the name of the pavilion right, one of the Brazilian pavilions, yeah, the consortium pavilion on LEAF as well. So if you need to find out more, there are many other events happening today, so please do come and ask us. Thank you very much to everyone for all of your interest, and a huge thank you to Rocchio and Emergent as well.